Well, hello, my lovelies. It's Janet Perez coming to you with Paint Couture Paints, and I am going to show you how I created a monochromatic linen look on this Bombay piece using all Paint Couture products, primarily Paint Couture products. So what I did is I first gave this a really good cleaning with our Fresh Start, which is the powdered product that you mix with water. I put it in a spray bottle and I clean the piece thoroughly. Then I rinse with vinegar water like I always do. Let it dry completely. And then I gave this a really good coat of the Premium Plus 2-in-1 primer in white. Then what I did was I started with a coat of Buttercream, which is what I'm doing here right now. And I'm giving it a light coat. I'm not worried about getting full coverage. I'm just giving it a super light coat with a chippy brush, sort of doing a crisscross pattern and going over it lightly so that I'm getting a base coat on. I don't care if there's some of the primer showing through, because by the time I'm building up layers on here, and by the time I'm done, you won't see any of that primer coming through. So it really doesn't matter. But I want to build up the layers, and that first layer is going to be the buttercream. Now what you see me adding here is Cozy Beige, and this is such a pretty warm beige color. It's one of my favorite colors for a neutral color. And you'll see, again, sporadic coverage. I am doing sort of a crisscross motion again. You'll see me lightly spritz my brush every once in a while just to kind of keep it moist so that that paint is moving on there lightly, because I don't want to leave too many lines quite yet, but I do want to keep it light, okay? So again, we want texture, and that's why it's really important to use a chip brush. Now I'm adding back in a little bit of the first color and just kind of going over it, because again, we're building the layers. So we're doing the Cozy Beige, we're doing the Buttercream, and now what I'm adding is I am adding Grounded, which is another beautiful color. See, these are all just earthy, natural tones. And you can see how that chip brush really adds some great texture to this piece. And that's what you want, because you want that. If you think about how linen looks, you can literally see the lines of the threads when you're looking at linen. And that's what you want to get here. So by using a chip brush, that natural boar bristle brush, you're going to get those brush strokes, and that's exactly what you want. Normally you don't want brush strokes, but in this instance you definitely do. And if you get too heavy-handed like I did back there a second ago, you can go back over it with one of your lighter colors to sort of tone it down. You can spritz it with a little bit of water, and this is a very forgiving technique, but you're just going to go in, plus and minus motions. That's all you're going to do, crisscross motions. And you can see here how I'm building that pattern up, okay? So think of a Chanel suit or a linen jacket, or whatever, your favorite tweed jacket that you ever had. And that's what you're kind of looking for here. So the next color that I'm using here is Madagascar Mocha, which is another, the next darker step. So I'm just kind of taking this in incremental steps of tone and going tone on tone, darker and darker and darker as I move along. And again, same motion, just building up those layers. And I'm doing a bit less color, the darker color that I go, because you just want it to sort of add shadows and highlights. You'll see me using my misting bottle occasionally. You'll see me adding back in the original colors of the Buttercream and the Cozy Beige if I get a little too dark in areas. So you are the artist. Don't you ever forget that. And you just do what you feel looks right to you, okay? It's sort of like the Sausalito dupe look. You want to just sort of go with what you feel looks right on this. And the linen look is what you make of it. So this is some size that I just put in a yeast jar, just FYI. And this is the size that I purchased from Artistic Painting Studios. And I love their size. If you've ever done any gilding, you know that gilding size is super expensive. And you get a little tiny bottle that gums up and lasts a very short period of time. The Artistic Painting Studio gilding is phenomenal. I pour some into that little yeast jar just so that I'm not opening the quart-sized container that I have all the time because I don't want it drying out. And I've had it for like a year and I still have a whole bunch of it left. So it's a phenomenal deal. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I am using a 1/4-inch chip brush and I am dipping it lightly into the size and I am sort of rolling it over the raised areas on this piece. And because I don't want heavy gilding or heavy gold foiling on this piece, I just want it to be very subtle because I feel that with the colors I'm using and the linen technique that I'm utilizing on this piece, it's going to look sort of old worldish, and having a real heavy gilded look on this would be overkill. So as you can see, I'm sort of rolling that gilded size over the areas that I want to have the bling on, okay? And I'm going over all of the raised area, but I'm doing it very lightly. So once that size dries completely, and you'll know that it's dry completely when it's clear and it comes to tack, okay? I grab the antique mirror foil that I got from Artistic Painting Studios, and I cut it into strips because it comes in a roll. And I lay it on top of the areas that have the size, and I rub it on with my hands as you see me doing here. And then I take a stiff bristle brush. I purchased some of these that are nylon stiff bristle and some that are metal stiff bristle. They're brass bristle. I like to use the nylon bristle. I think the brass bristle is a little too abrasive for the foil and the adhesive. Plus, I don't want 100% adhesion here because I'm going to do a second step on this in just a minute. But you can see with the technique I used for the size, I'm only getting the foil to adhere to the very tips of the raised areas here and very lightly onto that sort of that rope design, however you want to call it, that's coming down the sides there. And that's exactly what I want. And there's still going to be some tackiness on there. If I wanted to completely eliminate that tackiness, I would make certain that the foil that I'm laying down on there was completely eliminating all of that tacky and that it was adhering completely. But that's not what I want because I'm going to go back over all of this with some gilding because I want sort of a two-tone look on here. I know I'm weird. So after I get done with all of this, and you'll see me finish it up in just a minute, but you can see I burnish it with that stiff bristle brush and it kind of gets it on there nicely. And it just adds just the right amount of blink for my liking. Now what I also did was I added some adhesive size to the front of this piece, and I didn't show you that part. But I just grabbed some gold leaf, and that's what I have in my hand right here. And now I'm going back over. I didn't add any more size. Like I said, I wasn't making sure that all of that size was completely covered with the foil, okay? So this gold leaf is going to stick to all of the little areas that weren't covered by the foil, which is what I wanted. Now, the size that I put on the front of this piece, what I did was I used the same crisscross pattern for the size on the front that I did when I was painting it. So I just have some very small, very slight and light random areas that have that size on it. And I'm putting some gold leaf on that just so I have a few very subtle gold areas on the front of this piece to sort of add extra embellishment, which I like, and I think it looks really pretty. It's very subtle. So this piece is a resin piece. I mean, it is 100% resin, and you can always tell a resin piece typically without even very much inspection. Simply, the drawers don't have any seams necessarily. They're glued. The drawers are molded. The top looks painted. If it looks like it's wood, but it looks painted wood, there will be chips in it where it's white underneath the chips. And that's what this piece is. This piece is 100% resin. There is not 1 ounce of wood in this piece whatsoever. So I stripped down the top and sanded it because it had a faux burl wood painted pattern on the top of it, which was hideous. And I really probably didn't even need to do that, but I wanted to eliminate all traces of that because it was just hideous. And I'm painting it with a coat of Espresso, which is a paint by Paint Couture. It's their darkest dark brown, and I think it's just a beautiful dark brown paint. And making sure that I get a nice even coat on here, and I'm going to let that dry completely. And once that's dry, you'll see the next step that I do on here. So the next step is I am going to grab myself some more espresso and mix it with a little bit of my embossing medium. Mix it up really well, and you'll see it looks a little bit lighter when it's wet, but when it dries, it'll dry just as dark as the espresso did initially. And I'm putting a nice even layer, but not too thick, but just thick enough, like maybe 1/16 of an inch, if that. And I'm using my Artistic Painting Studio roller. This is one of their patterned rollers, and this is the alligator roller to get that really wicked cool alligator pattern on the top. And you can go back over it. It won't hurt anything because it's just that easy to use. And now I have an alligator skin top on this piece, which I think that texture in conjunction with the texture of the linen on the sides just makes this piece so unique and so special. But I'm going to take it one step further. Now, just know that that embossing medium needs to dry fully. And so I let it dry overnight. And my next step is to grab some of my clear glazing gel and some of the mica powder in the bronze from Paint Couture, and I'm mixing it up. So it's about, I'd say, a tablespoon of the clear glazing gel with maybe a teaspoon of the mica powder. And you can see I'm just mixing it up on a yogurt lid because I save all my yogurt containers for mixing paint and storing paint in goop. And I usually use the lids for mixing things like this. And you'll see I just added maybe a half teaspoon of water just to have a little more mixability in there. I always add a little bit of water to my glazing gel just to have a little more open time. And I'm just spreading it on the top of this piece completely. I want it to have a little more pizzazz. As you know, the front of this piece and with the gold leaf and the gold foil, it just needed a little something extra on that alligator pattern to tie it all in and tie it all together and give it that extra little oomph. So this mica powder, I don't know if you ever have used mica powder. If you have, raise your hand. Mica powder is a fabulous tool to have in your arsenal. It adds a little bit of extra sheen. You can mix it in with your paint. You can mix it in with your glazing gel. You can mix it in with your top coat. You can do so many things with mica powder. It is what makes the shine in your eyeshadow. If you have shiny eyeshadow ever, it's really beautiful. I use it in raised stencils sometimes. I have used it just to create stencils in general with top coat. But you can see here I'm wiping it back because I really just want it down in the recesses. And so I don't want it to be like total coverage. I just want it to be very subtle. My brush here is a little slightly damp so that I'm kind of wiping it back and blending it in even a little bit more. And now we're done with it. So there's the look on the top. You can see how it kind of got down into those nooks and crannies of that alligator hide in conjunction with the gold foil trim around the edge and then that linen look texture. What a knockout piece this is, don't you guys think? So that's it. This is the piece. What I did to the drawer sides is I painted them with the French rose and then added some decoupage paper to the side, or not decoupage paper, but some scrapbook paper, and that's it. So hope you enjoyed watching this and hope you learned something. Please leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are.